What are the official canon teams of every Pokemon protagonist? Pokemon Trainer Red is the only protag to appear in games outside of the ones that he stars in, and he's also the only protagonist to have an official team. This is his team from Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and the Black and White Champions Tournament, and it is Red's official canon team, according to Game Freak anyway. So that makes me wonder, what are the canon teams of all the other Pokemon protagonists? I mean, battling yourself from the previous game was the best idea Game Freak never used again. But what if they had? Let's pretend Dawn was an endgame boss in Black and White, for example. What Pokemon would the devs have put on her team? Through my meticulous research, I think I figured it out. So we're gonna look at all 9 generations of main series Pokemon games and come up with a team of 6 that I think Game Freak would approve of. So what counts as canon in Pokemon games? Simply put, it's anything that exists in the game cartridge or the disc itself. This is clearly the Red from Yellow version. His whole team are gift Pokemon, plus the Snorlax that blocked his path, and this is going to be our template. The Pokemon we come up with for the teams will need to meet these criteria: gifts and starters, roadblocks, and mandatory encounters. Gifts and starters are super easy, since you just get given those Pokemon, and roadblocks are anything like the Snorlax that stops you from progressing until you either defeat or catch it. If the option to catch it is there, we're just gonna assume that it was caught per the story. Mandatory encounters are similar. They're anything the game forces you to battle as you play, something like the Xerneas battle in Pokemon X. Spoiler alert, we'll also assume that these Pokemon were caught per the story. In the event that we can't get a full team of 6 from these qualifiers, we can use other Pokemon that meet canon criteria, stuff like in-game trades, narratively important Pokemon, or optional static encounters. We will not be using fossils for these teams, but legendaries and mythicals will be okay as long as it's one of those mandatory battles. Post-game additions are also just fine because these are supposed to be endgame boss teams, so there should be strong choices here. But let's just get started. We've already established Red's canon team. Since it shows up in the games themselves, this one is super easy. He uses the same team in both Generation 4 and 5. You could make an argument for his team in Let's Go being canon too, but in my opinion, the Red that we battle in Heart Gold and Soul Silver is the definitive version of Red, so that's the team we're going with. His counterpart, Ethan, will be the first one that we look at, since he's the protagonist of Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And I should mention, we'll just be looking at one protagonist per generation of Pokemon, since there's always their gendered counterparts. I've always seen Ethan as the main character, so we'll go with him. Ethan's team is a really easy one to dial in, since there are so many gift Pokemon available to us in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches. So for his team, I went with Typhlosion, Togekiss, Umbreon, Sudowoodo, the Red Gyarados, and Dragonite. Ethan is always shown with his partner Typhlosion, so safe to say that was his starter pick. Togekiss evolves from the Togepi that we hatch from the egg that we get in the very beginning, and it's what sets Ethan on his entire journey, so it's a very important member. Umbreon evolved from the Eevee that Bill gifts us, and I suppose this could be Espeon too, but I like Umbreon better, since Dark was a new type introduced in Gen 2, and in the originals, Red had an Espeon on Mount Silver, so we're sort of the counterpart here. Sudowoodo is the first roadblock we encounter in the game, while the Red Gyarados is the second, so those are easy picks for the team. And lastly is the powerhouse Extreme Speed Dragonite that we get from the Dragon's Den, and it is the star of the team. Thematically, I like this team a lot. It covers the new typings and mechanics that were introduced in Generation 2. It's an easy one to figure out given how many gifts are in the game, and it's actually a decently strong team. All of the protagonists are champion-level trainers, so having pseudo-legends and the occasional legendary is perfectly acceptable, which we'll see with this next team. Next up, we have May from Emerald version, which is the definitive Hoenn game as far as I'm concerned. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are cool, but they're no comparison to Emerald's story. This one is actually a really hard team to come up with because there aren't too many gift Pokemon or roadblocks in Hoenn, so we gotta get a little creative here. For May's team, I went with Blaziken, Wobbuffet, Castform, Kecleon, Metagross, and Latias. Yes, we have our first legendary on these teams, and it won't be the last. Blaziken, super easy, since May is usually seen with Torchic as her starter. Why Not is hatched from the egg that we get in Lava Ridge, and it very quickly becomes a Wobbuffet. The gift cast form from the Weather Institute is such an important member of this team because it represents Hoenn's weather issues, and it's a prize for defeating an evil team, just like Lapras was in Gen 1, so this has to be on there. Kecleon is the one and only roadblock Pokemon in the game, and it's something that you encounter with the champion Steven, which gives it narrative significance, so even though it's a bit of an underwhelming Pokemon, I think Kecleon works here. The last two team members, Metagross and Latias, are both post-game encounters, which make them feel a little out of place, but because our options are so limited, I think they work. In Emerald, the Lati is a roaming encounter, but you do get the gift Lati in Oras's main game. Plus, there's a whole cutscene that talks about the roaming Lati in Emerald, so between both versions and its narrative importance, I think it's safe to assume the Lati is meant to be on the team. And of course, the Metagross that Steven gives you represents just how powerful May has become at that point in the game, so I think both are worthy members here. Castform and Kecleon kind of seem like weak members of a final boss team, but May has both a legendary and a pseudo on this team, plus Shadow Tag Wobbuffet is an Avengers level threat, so I think this team of 6 is perfect. Although some other options are the Plusle that you get in an in-game trade, and the gift Johto starter that you get for completing the Hoenn decks. Only reason I didn't go with the Johto starter is because it's too big of a chore. Nobody got time for that. So with that team, you've probably noticed that sometimes we'll be making some unorthodox choices in team members, like the roaming legendary Latias. This next team doesn't have that problem at all, but it will be something that comes up again later, especially in the games where gift Pokemon are scarce. Next up though, we've got Dawn, the hero of Sinnoh and the main protagonist of Platinum version. And I'll tell you right now, her canon team is insanely strong compared to some others in this video. Dawn's team is made up of Empoleon, Togekiss, Porygon Z, Lucario, Leafeon, and the legendary Giratina. Dawn is almost always associated with Piplup, so her starter pick would be Empoleon. Togekiss evolves from the egg that Cynthia gives you, again with the narrative significance as it's another encounter with the region's champion. Porygon gets gifted to you in Veilstone City, and the fact you get both the upgrade and the Dubious Disc as you progress through the Team Galactic storyline tells me that we're meant to use and evolve this Porygon over time. We get the gift Eevee that we can evolve into anything we want, although because Leafeon and Glaceon are the new evolutions in this game, I'll go with either one, usually Leafeon since you can get it right away by doubling back to Eterna Forest. Also in Eterna Forest is the Haunted Mansion that has the Static Rotom encounter, and I almost included it on this team. I know some players prefer the Spiritomb you can get later, but I like Rotom's typing and form changes better. Not to mention, Cynthia has a Spiritomb too. Neither are mandatory encounters, but since you'd go back to Eterna to get your Leafeon, you might as well stop by the mansion and get a cool ghost type. But if we're gonna use a ghost type, it's gotta be Giratina, the box art legend and an absolute unit on this team. May sets a precedence for having legendaries, and this is the first time a battle with a legendary is non-optional. The Giratina comes at a reasonable level 47. The game is basically begging us to catch and use it, so that's what we're gonna do. And lastly is the gift Riolu egg, which grows into a powerful Lucario, easily one of the best gift mons in any of the games. This team is incredibly well-rounded and has a massive average base stat total, making Dawn one of the most powerful champions in the franchise. Moving on to Generation 5, in Black and White and their sequels, we have an interesting point to bring up. Up until now, it's been pretty easy to identify who the quote-unquote main protagonist of the games is. Red, Ethan, May, and Dawn all feel like they're the main characters instead of their counterparts. But in Black and White, it's not so easy to figure out who the hero is. They both work, and they're both kind of a mirror to N. For Black and White, I'm gonna go with Hilda because she has peak design, and in Black and White 2, I'm going with Nate. Hilda's team is another tough one because of a lack of gift mons and roadblocks, but the team that I came up with is Emboar, Pansage, Gyarados, Zenmo Darmanitan, Volcarona, and the box art legendary, depending on your game. Emboar seems to be the starter most associated with Hilda, and because of that, the elemental monkey we'd get is Pansage. You can buy a Magikarp from this guy on Marvelous Bridge for 500 Pokédollars, just like in the original Red and Blue, and Zenmo Darmanitan is obtainable when you wake up the sleeping statues outside of Relic Castle. However, both Gyarados and Darmanitan are locked behind the post game. but they're both really unique for the game. The Magikarp is the only one that you can get, and Zen Mode Darmanitan just makes it stand out more than the regular ones, and they're both very strong. Volcarona is the evolved Larvesta that we get as an egg, which means we'll probably never actually use it during the playthrough. But the box art legendary makes perfect narrative sense, since the game literally wants you to catch it before battling N for the last time. Black and White is pretty limited in its options, just like Emerald was, so we're getting a little creative here with the post-game mons, but I actually like this team a lot. Lots of fire types. If you have access to the event Pokemon, some honorable mentions are the event Zorua and Zoroark, and the Victini that you could get with the Liberty Pass. I really wish the Victini event was just in the base game because it involves a Team Plasma storyline, and you get it super early at a very modest level 15, which would be perfect for a playthrough. Victini's just awesome too. But after that, we have Black and White 2 with Nate, and his team is a little easier to figure out than Hilda's. Not by much, but a bit. He's got Samurott, Zoroark, Gigalith, Sawsbuck, Volcarona again, and an evolution of your choice. Samurott is a great water-type starter that fits his aesthetic. Zorua is a gift Pokemon that you get as soon as you reach Drift Veil, and Gigalith is the first in-game trade to make it onto one of these canon teams. It's traded to you in exchange for an Emolga on Route 7, but what's interesting is it's the same hiker who gives you an Emolga in exchange for a Boldore in the first Black and White. Same trainer ID and everything. Is this Gigalith the evolved Boldore that you traded away 2 years ago? Food for thought. But either way, you get a powerful rock type out of this, and this is one of the few traded Pokemon in the whole franchise that doesn't have a nickname. Sawsbuck is evolved from the gift Deerling that you get from the Research Institute, and Volcarona is an optional static encounter in the Relic Castle just like the first game, but this one's level is way more reasonable, and you can actually use it on your run, and that feels intentional. Finally, you get the gift Eevee in the post-game, and this can be whatever evolution you want. I feel like Jolteon is a good choice here, since the other types are accounted for on this team already. After that, we have Generation 6 with Pokemon X and Y versions, and this team is spicy, mostly because half of it is shared with Red. I think Serena is the obvious choice for main character here, so her team is Delphox, Venusaur, Lapras, Snorlax, Mega Lucario, and Xerneas. Delphox is her starter because she's almost always portrayed with Fennekin as a partner, plus Fire Psychic is an awesome typing. Venusaur is the gift starter that we get from Professor Sycamore, and although this could be any of the Kanto starters, I'm going with Bulbasaur for type coverage. We have Fire covered with Delphox, and Water is covered by the next Pokemon, Lapras, which we get as a gift on Route 12. Then there's the mandatory Snorlax battle to clear up Route 7, making it the third Pokemon in common with Red's team. The X and Y devs really wanted to make those Gen 1 callbacks. Mega Lucario is just handed to you after you defeat Gym Leader Karina, and it comes ready to go with a Mega Stone. And the final Pokemon is the box art legendary, although in my headcanon, Xerneas makes more sense. It represents the fairy typing, which was introduced in Gen 6, and it makes sense for Team Flare's plans of creating a more beautiful world. I guess Yveltal makes sense too when they want to wipe out the whole planet, but I digress. This team has two options for Mega Evolution, so that gives it some extra oomph, and even though it's got a lot in common with Red, I think the Mega options and the Legendary sets it apart. We're now moving on to Generation 7, where my knowledge of the franchise admittedly dips a little bit, but I'm doing my best here. I'm a filthy Gen 1er, leave me alone. We're going to be looking at Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, since those are the definitive Gen 7 games, and luckily we've got some good options here. I've always seen Elio as the protagonist, so this will be his team. Incineroar, Silvally, Aerodactyl, Alolan Raichu, Naganadel, and the Totem Mimikyu is the team that I went with here. Incineroar is just the coolest starter of all time, so that's a given. The type null you get after defeating the League is just waiting to join your party, so Silvally is a must-have on the team, even though it's a post-game Pokemon. Aerodactyl is given as a gift in Seafolk Village, which is a pretty late-game gift, but it's a powerhouse on the team. And I know I said no fossils earlier, but this one isn't getting revived, it's just given to you as it is, so I'm making an exception for Aerodactyl. The Alolan Raichu evolves from the gift Surfing Pikachu that you get for completing the Mantine Surf challenges, which makes it another late game gift, but it represents the regional forms and is also a pretty strong Pokemon for the team. Naganadel is a guaranteed Ultra Beast that you get as a gift while it's still a Poipole, and the Totem Mimikyu is the only totem gift that is shared between both Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. The other totems vary depending on your game, so I don't like having to pick and choose, and I feel like Mimikyu is a very iconic Gen 7 Pokemon anyway, so I like it. For this team, we definitely had to get a little creative. Most of them are late game, but it covers all of our bases, and I think it's a strong team for Elio. Sword and Shield is next, and for these last two gens, we're going to be looking at DLC Pokemon since the DLC is the complete experience. There's no point in missing out on cool team members just for the sake of being vanilla. Not to mention, there aren't too many good options in the base game anyway. For Sword and Shield, I've always seen Gloria as the main protagonist of this generation. It's that Scottish charm. Her team consists of Rillaboom, a Gigantamaxed Kanto starter, Toxtricity, Galarian Slowbro, Urshifu, and Eternatus. Two legendaries makes this team insane, and it makes Gloria one of the strongest trainers in this video. The starter can be anything, really, but Rillaboom is a grass type, and we haven't had a grass type starter yet, actually, so I'm going with him. Leon gives you a Charmander after becoming champion, and you also get either a gift Squirtle or Bulbasaur in the DLC, so you can take your pick of Kanto starter here, and they all have the ability to Gigantamax, so this is a strong member. Toxtricity evolves from the gift Toxel that you get from the daycare center, and is one of the few gifts in the base game. Galarian Slowpoke is a static encounter at Wedgehurst Station, so we have our regional variant with the Slowbro, and Urshifu evolves from the Cubfu you get in the DLC. Eternatus is just Eternatus, a Giga Boss Pokemon, and one that makes sense to have considering just how epic the battle with it is. This is a cracked lineup. Don't mess with Gloria. And lastly, we're on to Scarlet and Violet, the most recent main series games as of making this video, and this one is really tricky, guys. To be honest, I'm kind of winging it here, and most of these are either post-game acquisitions or Pokemon that you get in the DLC expansions, since very few of them are in the base game. For this team, we've got Meowscarada, Oinkologne, Ogerpon, Galarian Persian, Hisuian Arcanine, and the box art legendary for either game. The starter can, again, be anything here, but Pokemon fans love them some Meowscarada, so she's the pick for the starter. The Oinkologne evolves from the Lechonk that we have a forced encounter with during the game's capture tutorial. Ogerpon is the prize for finishing the Teal Mask DLC and is obtainable before the post-game, while Galarian Persian and Hisuian Arcanine are gifts from side quests. Koraidon or Miraidon are the box art legendaries, and since we are guaranteed to get them as we play, they make sense for an obvious 6th teammate. Just take your pick depending on the game. I think this lineup is pretty cool. It's got 2 legendaries, but it feels just a little bit weaker than Gloria's team overall. But with that, those are all the canon teams of each Pokemon protagonist in the main series games. Let me know what you guys think of these teams in the comments below. I know this video concept isn't new. I've seen other content creators try to tackle this very problem themselves, and they've made great videos on it. This is how I interpret what the canon teams of each protagonist would be, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It's the first Pokemon video I'm putting out on this channel, so if you guys want to see more, let me know. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Thank you for watching the video. This has been Star. Keep shining, baby.